The Lost Treasure Map. It was a warm summer morning in the quiet coastal town of Silver Bay. The sun, rising lazily over the horizon, cast its golden rays on the sea, which sparkled like millions of diamonds scattered across the ocean. But amidst this peaceful beauty, something strange was about to happen, a discovery that would change the lives of three curious friends forever. Lily, a spirited 12-year-old with wild brown curls, was the first to spot it. She had been wandering along the rocky shoreline, her shoes dangling from her fingers, enjoying the salty breeze and the sound of the waves crashing against the rocks. Her eyes caught a glimmer among the seaweed and barnacles, something that did not belong. She squatted down, brushing the wet seaweed aside, and revealed a weathered, old bottle half buried in the sand. It was sealed with a cork, and inside was a rolled-up piece of paper. "What is this?" she whispered to herself, her heart pounding with excitement. She had seen old bottles washed up on the beach before, but none with something inside. Without hesitation, she popped the cork and pulled out the yellowed parchment. The paper was old, like it had been there for centuries, its edges frayed and brittle to the touch. She unfurled it carefully and gasped. The map was crudely drawn, but unmistakable. It showed a small island off the coast of Silver Bay, marked with a large X in the center. The island was circled by strange symbols and lines, some of which appeared to be codes. At the bottom of the map was a message, faded but still legible. "The treasure awaits the one who dares to follow the path of the shadows and the tide. Beware the guardians that protect what is lost." Lily's mind raced. Treasure? Lost treasure? She could not believe her eyes. But before she could examine the map any further, a familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "Lily, what did you find?" It was her best friend, Jack, a lanky boy with bright blue eyes who was always eager for an adventure. He had appeared out of nowhere as usual, his feet kicking up sand as he ran toward her. "I think I have found something amazing," Lily said, her voice full of excitement. "Look at this." Jack leaned over her shoulder, his eyes widening as he read the map. "Whoa, is that a treasure map?" he asked, incredulity in his voice. "I think so," Lily said, pointing to the X on the island. "It looks like it is pointing to a treasure hidden on that island, just off the coast." Jack's eyes gleamed. He had always been fascinated by tales of pirates and hidden treasures. "We have to find it," he exclaimed. Lily nodded eagerly. "But how do we get there? We do not have a boat?" Just as they were about to discuss their options, another voice interrupted them, causing both of them to look up. It was Emma, their other close friend. Emma was the quiet one of the group, but her sharp mind and logical thinking had gotten them out of many tricky situations. "Did you say treasure?" Emma asked, walking up to them with a knowing smile. "What are you two getting into now?" Lily excitedly handed her the map. Emma took one look at it, then raised an eyebrow. "This looks like a real treasure map," she said, impressed despite herself. "The handwriting is old-fashioned, and the symbols, they are not something you see every day." "I knew it," Jack said, clapping his hands together. "We are going on a treasure hunt. Just think about it, a real treasure." "But we need to figure out how to get there first," Emma said, her practical side taking over. "Let us go back to my house and study the map more closely. Maybe we can figure out where the island is and how to get to it." The three friends raced back to Emma's house, the map safely tucked in Lily's backpack. Emma's house, a small cottage near the edge of Silver Bay, was filled with bookshelves and maps of all kinds. The smell of paper and wood, mixed with the salty air from the sea, Emma immediately pulled a large world atlas off one of the shelves and spread it out on the table. "Okay, let us see if we can find this island," Emma said, tracing her finger across the map in the atlas. "This looks like it is somewhere near the bay, but it is not on the map. It might be a small, uncharted island. Let us see." They spent hours poring over maps and atlases, trying to match the mysterious island to any known location. But no matter how hard they looked, they could not find any reference to the island. "This is strange," Emma said, frustrated. "There is nothing like it around here. It is like this island does not exist." Elise's eyes fell on the faded message at the bottom of the map again. "The treasure awaits the one who dares to follow the path of the shadows and the tide." "The path of the shadows," Lily murmured, thinking aloud. "Maybe it is a clue. Maybe the island only shows up at certain times. What if it is hidden, like a secret that can only be revealed when the conditions are right?" Jack raised an eyebrow. "You mean like a pirate island that only appears when the tide is low or something?" "Exactly," Lily said, her eyes lighting up. "What if the tide reveals the island? We just need to wait for the right moment, the right time, and the right tide." Emma, though skeptical, could see the spark in Lily's eyes. She could tell that her friend truly believed this could be the beginning of an adventure. "Okay," Emma said, after a moment of thought, "let us give it a shot. If we are wrong, we've not lost anything, but if we are right, we might just find a treasure." The three friends set their plan in motion. They knew that the tide was always predictable, and with the right timing, they could head out to the spot indicated on the map. The island might be hidden, but it was not gone forever. They would find it. The next few days passed in a blur of confinement as Lily, Jack, and Emma prepared for their adventure. They spent their time at the Wuckle Library, researching the tides and studying the mysterious map. Emma, ever the practical one, made sure they were ready for anything. She packed a bag with essentials, flashlights, a compass, water bottles, and snacks, and made sure their phones were fully charged, just in case. On the morning of the adventure, the weather was perfect, clear skies, a gentle breeze, and the promise of an exciting day ahead. The three friends met at the docks at the crack of dawn. The sea was calm, with just the slightest ripple as the tide was still low. The map's symbols seemed to glow in Lily's mind as she thought of the mysterious message at the bottom. "The treasure awaits the one who dares to follow the path of the shadows and the tide." "We are doing this," Lily said, her voice full of determination. Jack grinned. "Let us find that treasure." "I am just hoping we do not get lost," Emma said, adjusting her backpack with a half smile. "But I think we are ready." They had borrowed a small rowboat from one of the friendly fishermen in Silver Bay. The boat was old but sturdy, perfect for a journey to an unknown island. As they paddled out into the water, the town of Silver Bay seemed to fade behind them, replaced by the endless expanse of the ocean ahead. The closer they got to the area marked on the map, the more anxious they became. The water was eerily calm, and the sky had started to turn a darker shade of blue. For a while, it seemed like they were not going anywhere, but just as they were about to give up, something changed. A gust of wind swept across the boat, and the tide suddenly shifted, pulling them toward a small rocky formation that they had not noticed before. "That is it," Lily cried, pointing toward the island that had suddenly appeared in front of them. It was small, with jagged rocks surrounding a patch of sandy shore. It looked almost like it had risen from the ocean, as if it had been hidden for years and was now revealing itself. Emma squinted at the island. "I do not see any obvious paths or markings." "We will need to be careful." They rowed closer, their hearts racing. As they got closer to the shore, they noticed strange carvings on the rocks near the water's edge, ancient symbols that seemed to match the ones on the map. The air felt heavy with mystery, and the sound of the waves crashing against the rocks was deafening. "I think we are on the right track," Jack said, his eyes shining with excitement. Once they made it ashore, the trio carefully examined the island. The trees were dense, with thick vines that seemed to grow in twisted patterns, and the ground was uneven, covered in moss and rocks. There was no obvious trail, but Lily was sure that the map had led them here for a reason. "The map," she said, pulling it out again. It said something about shadows and the tide. "Maybe the shadows will help us find the treasure." The island was small, but it was easy to see how the shadows played tricks on the ground. As the sun climbed higher, the shadows stretched and shifted, covering different parts of the island in darkness. Lily's eyes caught something out of the corner of her eye, a shadow that seemed to move, not quite following the natural pattern of the sun. "Look!" she shouted, pointing toward a cluster of trees. There, half hidden in the shade, was an opening in the rock, a narrow passageway leading into the heart of the island. "Let us go," Jack said eagerly, already starting toward the path. The three friends squeezed through the passage, the air growing colder as they ventured deeper into the island's interior. The trees had grown so dense here that they could hardly see the sky, and the shadows seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions. The further they went, the more mysterious the island became. They walked for what felt like hours, the only sounds the crunch of their footsteps on the uneven ground and the distant call of birds overhead. Eventually they came to a clearing, a large, open space with a strange stone circle in the center. The stones were arranged in a perfect ring, and in the middle of the circle was a pedestal with an old chest on top of it. "That is it," Lily whispered, her voice full of awe. "The treasure." Jack stepped forward, eager to open the chest, but Emma grabbed his arm, stopping him. "Wait," she said, her eyes scanning the area. "This does not feel right." "What if the chest is booby-trapped or protected?" Lily took a deep breath. "The map said something about guardians. What if they are watching us right now?" Just as Emma was about to speak, the ground beneath them trembled, and a low, rumbling sound echoed through the clearing. The trees around them seemed to shift, and out of the shadows emerged Furfur, a tall, cloaked figure with glowing eyes. "Guardians," Jack muttered under his breath. The figure stepped into the light, revealing an ancient-looking man with long, flowing hair and a stern face. He carried a staff that glowed with a strange energy, and he looked at the trio with a gaze that seemed to pierce through them. "You have come for the treasure," the guardian said in a deep, gravelly voice. "But not all treasures are meant to be found. To claim what is hidden, you must prove your worth." Lily, Jack, and Emma exchanged nervous glances. "What do we have to do?" Lily asked, her voice shaking. The guardian raised his staff, and the stone circle around them began to glow with an ethereal light. "You must pass the trials of the island. Only those who are brave enough, wise enough, and pure of heart may take the treasure. Fail, and you be lost here forever." The ground trembled once more, and the shadows around them seemed to come alive, swirling and shifting. The trio knew this was no ordinary adventure. They were about to face challenges that would test everything they had. "We are ready," Emma said, stepping forward, her voice firm with determination. The guardian nodded. Then the trials began. The guardian's eyes gleamed with a mysterious light as the ground beneath their feet rumbled again. The stone circle round them pulsed with an eerie energy, and the shadows deepened, stretching out like long fingers, grasping at the air. "The first trial," the guardian intoned, his voice echoing in the clearing, "is the trial of courage." Before the trio could react, the ground beneath them cracked open with a loud, thunderous noise. A jagged fissure spread across the earth, and from the depths a strange, dark mist began to rise. The mist coiled like a serpent, twisting and hissing as it surrounded them, blocking their sight. The temperature dropped sharply, and their breaths became visible in the cold air. Lily's heart pounded. "What is happening? What is the trial of courage?" The guardian's voice echoed once more, floating from the shadows. "You must walk through the mist of fear. Only those who are truly brave can survive its grasp. If you turn back, you will fail. If you hesitate, you will be lost." Jack swallowed hard, his face pale, but his resolve was unshaken. "We have to do this. We have come this far." Emma nodded, her logical mind racing through the possibilities. "This is just a test. The mist may be an illusion. It is meant to spare us." Lily, feeling her legs go wobbly with nerves, took a deep breath. The mist seemed to call to her, whispering her deepest fears. She glanced at Jack and Emma, who were standing tall, determination etched in their faces. Together, they stepped forward into the swirling fog. The mist surrounded them instantly, cold and thick, its tendrils wrapping around their bodies, seeping into their minds. The air was suffocating, and the deeper they ventured, the more they felt the weight of it pressing in on them. Lily's breath quickened. Every shadow seemed to take on a terrifying form, faces, eyes, and creatures that whispered her darkest thoughts. She saw flashes of her greatest fears, losing her friends, failing her family, never living up to the adventurous spirit she so desperately wanted to prove. She stopped, her legs trembling. This is it. "I cannot do it," she thought, panic rising within her chest. The whispers grew louder, as she felt as if the shadows were closing in around her, suffocating her. "Lily." Jack's voice broke through the haze, sharp and clear. She turned to see him stand in a few paces behind her, his face full of concern. "Do not give up. You are not alone." Emma's voice followed. "Focus, Lily. You have the strength to keep going. You have always had it." Lily's heart steadied, and for the first time, she focused on the sound of her friends' voices. They were not just calling to her from the mist. They were right there beside her, with her, in this moment. She realized that the mist, the shadows, were trying to isolate her, to make her doubt herself. Taking a deep breath, she took a step forward, then another, and another. She was not alone. She had her friends, and they would face whatever came next together. The mist swirled and hissed, but it slowly started to retreat, as if afraid of her newfound determination. The shadows that had seemed so terrifying now just seemed like fleeting illusions, fading away into the distance. When the mist finally cleared, they stood at the edge of the stone circle once more, the air warm again, the sunlight breaking through the trees. The guardian stood before them, his staff glowing faintly. "You have passed the trial of courage," he said, his voice softer now. "You have faced your fear and emerged stronger. But the next trial will be even harder." Lily, Jack, and Emma exchanged relieved glances, but they knew they were not out of danger yet. They had passed the first trial, but the treasure was still out of reach. "The second trial," the guardian continued, "is the trial of wisdom." The ground beneath them shifted again, and the stone circle parted, revealing a vast labyrinth that stretched into the distance. The walls of the labyrinth were made of stone, and the paths twisted and turned in every direction. In the center of the labyrinth was another pedestal, this time with the single glowing gemstone resting on top. The path to the treasure is hidden within this labyrinth, the guardian explained. But not all paths are what they seem. Only the wisest will find the true way. The wrong choice will lead you to a dead end, or worse. Jack looked at the labyrinth with trepidation. Another challenge. How do we know which path is the right one? Emma stepped forward, her brow furrowed in concentration. We need to think this through. This is not about speed. It is about understanding. The map might hold a clue. Lily pulled the map from her backpack, unfolding it carefully. As she looked at it, she realized that there were markings on the map that had not made sense before. The strange symbols, now that she looked closely, were scattered throughout the labyrinth, marking specific paths. I think I see it, she said, pointing to the map. The path we need to follow is marked by these symbols. It is the only one that leads to the center of the maze. Emma and Jack leaned in, studying the map closely. You are right, Emma said. We have to follow these symbols. It is not about picking a path at random. It is about understanding the pattern. Together, they began to navigate the labyrinth, following the symbols on the map. Each turn they made seemed to lead them closer to the center, but every now and then they would come across a fork where the symbols were missing or misleading. The air grew heavier, the tension mounting with every choice they made. It is a puzzle, Jack said, frustration creeping into his voice. Every choice we make has to be right, or we will end up back where we started. Stay focused, Emma said, her voice steady. We have made it this far. We can do this. Finally, after what seemed like hours of navigating the labyrinth, they reached the center. The gemstone on the pedestal glowed with a soft, ethereal light. Lily reached out and touched the gemstone. As her fingers made contact with it, the stone pulsed, and the ground beneath them shifted once more. The stone circle surrounding them began to rise, and a hidden door opened in the ground, revealing a staircase leading downward. The guardian's voice echoed once more. You have passed the trial of wisdom, but the final trial awaits. They stood at the threshold of the final challenge, ready for whatever came next. That they had already overcome fear and doubt, and now they were about to face the ultimate test. Lily, Jack, and Emma knew that they could not back down. The treasure was within their grasp, but they had to be ready for whatever lay ahead. Together they stepped forward into the darkness of the staircase, knowing that the path to the treasure was almost within reach. As the trio descended into the darkness, the air grew colder, the walls of the tunnel slick with moisture. The steps beneath their feet creaked, and the dim glow of the gemstone illuminated the path ahead, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and twist around them. The further they descended, the more they could feel the weight of the place pressing on them. This was no ordinary underground passage. The stairs spiraled downward for what seemed like an eternity, until they reached a massive cavern, so vast it felt like an entirely different world. The walls were covered in ancient carvings depicting strange creatures and long-forgotten tales. At the center of the cavern stood an enormous stone door, adorned with intricate symbols and a massive lock that gleamed in the dim light. This was it, final trial. The guardian's voice boomed, echoing in the cavern, as if it came from all directions. You stand before the door of truth. The last trial is not one of strength, nor wisdom. It is the trial of the heart. Lily felt a shiver run down her spine. The air in the cavern was thick, and the darkness seemed to close in around them. The door before them was impenetrable, with no visible way to unlock it. What does that mean? Jack asked, his voice low, eyes scanning the cavern for clues. A trial of the heart? The heart is the key, the guardian's voice answered, his tone now softer, almost reflective. You must each face your own truths. Only when your hearts are pure will the door open. Lily exchanged uneasy glances with Jack and Emma. They had faced so many challenges already, tests of courage, wisdom, and now their hearts. What could that possibly mean? Emma stepped forward, her logical mind struggling to make sense of it. The key to unlocking the door must be inside us. It is not about finding a physical key. 'Tis about understanding who we are. The stone door was silent, unyielding, but as Emma spoke, the symbols etched into the stone seemed to shift and change, glowing faintly. The cavern itself seemed to respond to her words, the air becoming heavier, more intense. "Do you see that?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "The door is reacting to us." "The trial of the heart," Jack muttered, frowning. "Maybe we have to open up, tell the truth about what is inside us, the real truth." Lily felt her breath catch in her throat. The thought revealing her deepest feelings, the things she had never told anyone, made her chest tighten. She had always been the brave one, the one who led the charge, but now she realized that bravery was not just about facing external dangers. Here it was about confronting her own fears and insecurities. "I think we need to be honest with ourselves," Lily said slowly, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. "Maybe the treasure is not just gold or jewels. Maybe it is something else. Something that can only be found when we face what we truly want." Jack looked at her, his face serious. "What are you thinking?" Lily took a deep breath, the weight of her own thoughts pressing on her. "I think I have always tried to be this fearless adventurer because I was scared of being ordinary. But what if I have been running away from what really matters, from the things that scare me the most?" Her words hung in the air, and for a moment the cavern seemed to hold its breath. She looked over at Jack, who was quiet for a long moment before stepping forward. "I have always thought that I had to be strong, that I had to be the funny guy to keep everyone entertained. But the truth is, sometimes I'm scared of not being enough, scared of being left behind." Emma, who had been standing in the shadows, stepped forward next. Her voice was soft, but her words were full of sincerity. "I have always been the practical one, the one who keeps things together, but I am tired of always being the one who has to fix everything. Sometimes I wish I could just let go and not always have to have the answers." The cavern seemed to respond to their honesty, the stone door trembling slightly. The symbols on the door began to glow brighter, and the massive lock started to shift, as if something deep within the door was awakening. "We are all afraid," Lily said, her voice gaining strength. "But I think the only way to move forward is to stop hiding from those fears, to embrace them, and trust each other with the truth." For a moment, everything was still. The air felt thick with emotion, and the stone door seemed to pulse with energy, as if acknowledging the depth of their words. Slowly, the lock began to turn, the symbols on the door glowing brighter than ever, and then, with a low rumble, the door opened, revealing a hidden chamber beyond. The light from the door bathed the cavern in a soft golden glow. Inside the chamber, the walls were lined with treasures beyond imagination, golden coins, sparkling jewels, and artifacts from ancient civilizations. But as Lily, Jack, and Emma stepped into the chamber, they realized that the true treasure was not just the riches in front of them. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested a simple, unadorned book. Its cover was made of soft leather, and there was no title, no markings to indicate what it was. But as they approached, they felt its importance. This was the treasure they had been seeking. Lily's heart raced. What is this? Emma stepped forward, her fingers brushing the surface of the book. This is not just a book. It is a record of all the adventures of those who have come before us. This is the real treasure, the knowledge, the stories, the experiences. Jack's eyes widened as he realized what it meant. It is not just about finding gold. It is about the journey, the lessons we have learned. Lily smiled, a feeling of peace washing over her. They had come so far, not for treasure, but for something much more valuable, a deeper understanding of themselves, and the strength that came from confronting their fears and embracing who they truly were. The cavern around them began to shimmer and fade, as if the island itself was acknowledging their success. The stone walls, the treasure, and even the guardian began to dissolve into the light, leaving behind only the book. Lily, Jack, and Emma stood in silence for a moment, their hearts filled with a sense of completion. They had found the treasure, but it was not what they had expected. The island, now no longer hidden by shadows, began to fade into the horizon, like a dream dissipating in the morning sun. The three friends looked at each other, knowing that this adventure would stay with them forever. As they turned to leave, the book glowed softly in Lily's hands, the wisdom it contained, already beginning to shape their future. "We did it," Jack said, smiling widely. "Yeah," Lily said, looking out at the endless horizon. "We found the greatest treasure of all." And with that, they made their way back to Silver Bay, knowing that their real adventure had just begun.